everyone, this is Mindy Egan for Lawnfawn, and in today's video, I'm going to be creating a nighttime desert scene. Before I begin any stenciling or creating my background, I'm first going to take the Desert Canyon backdrop and I'm going to die cut it out of white cardstock. I kind of need to use this as my guide so I know where to place my stencils. Next, I'll take another piece of cardstock. This is 4¼ by 5½, and I put a little bit of repositionable tape to secure it down to my work surface. I'll then grab the nighttime stencil. It's the one that has the moon. So I brought in that backdrop that I created, and I know I'm sorry it's hard to see on camera right now because it's all white, but it'll all come together once I start ink blending. So I used that backdrop as my guide because I wanted the moon to be in the center of the canyons. Once I had that placed there, I'm just holding the stencil down with some washi tape and then masking off the areas around it using Post-it tape. I'm going to use a foam blending tool to do my ink blending for today. So I started out with Lost Shadow Distress Oxide ink. I'm going to fill in that entire open area of the stencil. Then I can remove the stencil by just taking the Post-it tape and removing the washi tape. I'm going to shift the stencil, and there's two different types of craters that I could add to my moon. There's one that's got some smaller ones, but I really liked the big ones. So I lined that up over my moon, held that down again with the washi tape, and masked off the areas around it. And then I'm going to come in with pumice stone. So this is just a little bit darker of an ink. I'm using a smaller blending tool to really get into those small areas of the stencil. With the nighttime stencil, we have a mask for our moon. So after I remove this, I'm going to take that mask, which is just a circle piece, and I folded up some of that Post-it tape I was using, and I'm just placing that on the back of the moon. I'll place that over my ink blended area, so that's going to mask that off, and I can work on the nighttime scene. I've done a few different scenes with this desert canyon backdrop already, but I really wanted to do a nighttime scene, really get dramatic with my ink blending. So I'm starting off with tumbled glass distress oxide ink, and I'm going to go around my moon. Now you're going to see that I'm bringing in that die cut panel quite a bit to kind of get an idea where my moon is, where I needed to start my ink blending, and how far up I needed to go. Next, I'm going to come in with chipped sapphire. I'm going to start above the tumbled glass and work my way up towards the top, really getting a good coverage. So I go over it multiple times to really deepen and darken that color. Then I will use a little bit of black soot at the very top to really add that dramatic effect. And then bring in my previous colors and blending tools to help smooth out that transition. That's one of the reasons I use the oxides is because they layer over top of each other so well, especially with the tumble glass, because sometimes that light color can get lost. But because I'm going over it again, it's really kind of layering over that chipped sapphire and giving that moon the glow. So I'm going to bring in the backdrop, make sure that I can see all of my colors in there, and I'm going to wipe up a little bit around my cardstock. I'm going to kind of pick up that black ink and try and remove that. I want to bring in a stencil to do some stars and some paste, and I didn't want the paste to pick up that excess ink. So this is the Starry Sky stencil. Again, I'm holding that down with some washi tape, and then I'm going to start off first by going over the stars with the Yeti pigment ink. I was playing around prior to this, and I noticed that when I put paste over the top, the paste kind of took on the oxide. So by putting that white pigment ink down first, it's giving it kind of a base layer. I'm going to be using some Astro paste. This is slippery when wet. It looks really cloudy, but when it dries, it's going to be gold glitter stars, which I thought would be beautiful for this nighttime scene that I'm creating. So I'm just kind of applying that over the open areas with my spatula. I'm going to smooth it out, and then I can remove my stencil and go and wash that off right away or put it in a bucket of soapy water to get that glitter off. I'll sometimes bring in a palette knife to get underneath the cardstock and help remove that from my work surface, and then just carefully removing that moon stencil. It's just Post-it tape, so I know it's not going to rip anything, but I don't want to smudge or smear my stars. Now I'm going to set this off on the side to dry, and I'm going to work on my backdrop. So I'm taking that desert canyon that I die cut out of white cardstock, and I'm starting off with antique linen and my blending tool. Now I do like to ink blend super fast. I don't know why. I just do. But you do have to be careful. If you go too fast, you can crinkle your cardstock, which is what I did there. But I was pretty positive I could cover that up. So once I have the antique linen down as my base, I'm coming in with vintage photo and I'm using a smaller blending tool to kind of help really focus in on that area so that I'm not losing that antique linen. And I'm just bringing that color down a little bit so it's giving it kind of that brownish color. And then I'm going to top it off with aged mahogany. And I think this really turned out nicely with those different shades of color and that little bit of red there. So I'm trying to keep that red more towards the top of the canyon. And if I need to, I can always come in back with the other colors to kind of help smooth out the transitions. I did even bring in a little bit of black soot that was left over on my blending tool to really kind of bump up that contrast. Now I have a piece of cardstock that I die cut from the stitched hillside, and I'm going to be adding this towards the bottom of my card front. So I'm going to use the same colors. Now I did kind of have to take a minute to decide where I wanted my darkest area to be. I decided I was going to have it towards the bottom because then that way it would really keep the separation between the two. I didn't want the stitched hillside to get lost by being too close to the canyon with darker colors. So again, I started out with antique linen, then coming in with that vintage photo, and then I will bring in that aged mahogany down towards the bottom. And then again, even a little bit of that black soot to help kind of bring in that contrast once again and tie in all the colors. And it is a nighttime scene, so I am going to have areas that are pretty dark in comparison to the sky. Then once I have that done, I am going to just bring in that backdrop again. I know that there are areas that are showing, but I was pretty sure I was going to be trimming this down and filling in those areas. So I am going to put this off on the side and work on some coloring. So the images I have stamped out here, I have a lot of them, but I'm not gonna do all of the coloring on screen. I'm only going to be showing the coloring for the images that I ended up using in my project. But the images I stamped out are from Critters in the Desert, S'more the Merrier, and Wolf Before and After. My original idea was to have these critters having a camp out. I really wanted to have this nighttime scene where they're camping out in the desert. So that is where I brought in the S'more the Merrier. It had the graham crackers and marshmallows. I also, of course, brought in Critters in the Desert with the cactus to kind of help work on that scene. And then I don't know when it hit me, but I thought the wolf before and after would be super cute to have them sitting there and howling at the moon. So all of these images are stamped out on Express It cardstock in the Lawn Fawn Jet Black ink, and I'm coloring them in mainly with my Opic Olo markers. I did bring in some Copics here and there along the line because I just have my favorites in those color combinations, but for the most part, I believed I used my Olos. And for all of these images, this is something I will typically do when I'm planning out a card is I just stamp a bunch of things that kind of come to mind that I think may work. And I may or may not use them all. I just kind of color them all up. And then as I start putting my scene together, what looks right or feels right to me in the scene or what is going to fit, that is what I end up going with. So this is really me kind of planning out my process because I hadn't stamped this out or really thought out my design too much ahead of time. So you can see I did my cactus in a nice bright green. I probably should have added darker shades of green to my cactus since it is a nighttime scene. They probably would have been a little bit darker or have more shading to it, but I think it's really cute. I have my critters all colored in there at the bottom from S'more the Merrier. And then I did like a warm gray for the wolves. Here I'm working on my snake. I really love this golden yellow color that I use for the snake quite often. The rocks I did in that reddish brown tone to match my canyon. And I'm doing a black scorpion. I thought it kind of went nice with my wolves as far as a desert scene. Thankfully, I don't live in a desert, so I don't have to see scorpions, but they look super cute on the card. Now that I have everything colored in, I'm going to use the coordinating die to trim them all out. And anything that I don't end up using on my card front, I do kind of have a little stash or a little tray that I keep everything in. So maybe down the line, this owl would be really good for a school, back to school themed card. So I do save everything. Now I can start working on my scene. So my stars are dry. You can see they're this beautiful glittery gold in the background. I'm lining up the backdrop and I decided that I'm going to trim off that top edge. So I'm just going to use my scissors to trim that off, try and get lined up as close as I could at the top of the canyon. And then that way my scene or my sky can extend all the way to the top. And then I have my bottom, my stitched hillside that I'm going to be adding there towards the bottom. So off screen, I'm going to go ahead and trim everything down. The bottom, my stitched hillside was just a little bit too much cardstock, and I really wanted to have that nighttime scene really be visible. So I trimmed everything down. I think this panel ends up measuring 3 3/4 by 5 inches. I'm going to line up my backdrop with foam tape to pop it up. Now there are stitched or there's kind of die cut lines in there where you could tuck critters into, but I am just placing my foam tape over that to keep it all connected. And then I can kind of arrange it how much of the moon, how much of the sky that I wanted to show. You can see down towards the bottom, I do have two little gaps there where my backdrop didn't go all the way down to the bottom. So I'm going to trim off some more of that foam tape and I'm going to add it into those two little open areas. And then I can take tape runner, add it to the back of my stitched hillside, and then I can attach to my stitched hillside because I knew I wanted to pop up my critters or some of them. So I didn't want to have too much dimension on here. Then I'm going to start bringing in my critters and all of my elements that I had colored up, try and see what is going to work, what is going to fit. I think at this point is where I decided that I was not going to use the S'more the Merrier set, but I did bring in that guitar. It's leaning against the cactus. I thought it was just kind of a nice little element to really give that home on the range type of feel to my card front. And then once I have everything laid out, I start working from the back coming forward. So the cactus, one of those wolves is attached with just a tape runner, but then the guitar, since it's in front of the cactus, I'm going to pop it up with some foam tape. Same thing here. I did attach the snake to the rock, and then I attached both of those with the foam tape to pop them up since they're more in the front of the scene. And then the same thing with the scorpion and the little fire pit there. Those are going to be popped up with foam squares. I know the fire isn't really in the forefront, but it is in front of that wolf that's howling at the moon. And I just love him. I know this is a Halloween set, but boy, did it work out perfect for this scene. Now for my card front panel, I am going to be using some black licorice cardstock that I trimmed out to 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. So I'm adding foam tape behind my blended scene, and then I can add this to the front of the card. So I could have gone with white, which is typically what I do to make my colors pop more, but the black just kind of added into that nighttime feeling. And then, of course, like usual, a sentiment was the last thing I had on my mind because I was so excited for creating the scene. So off screen, I did some die cutting. I have the word howl that I die cut from black cardstock and black glitter cardstock. So this is actually part of a sentiment out of that wolf before and after. I like to take one word out of the sentiment and die cut it out of the Kohl's ABC and then layer it up to add dimension. Now I'm adding this to the top of the card using some liquid glue. I really, really loved that black glitter cardstock, but you're going to see in a minute that I changed it because I felt like it was not standing out enough with my nighttime scene. Now that smaller sentiment is also off of the wolf before and after. I just heat embossed it on black cardstock with white embossing powder and trimmed it down to a thin strip to add underneath that word howl. Here's where I decided to change that out. I really did love that black glitter, but I wanted it to stand out a little bit more. So I die cut those letters out of gold glitter cardstock, and I thought that would be a nice way to kind of tie in the gold glitter of my stars. And I'm just taking the glue tube, adding a little bit of that to the back of the letter and placing that over the top. And I'm just really holding them down nicely to get that glue to attach to the glitter cardstock. I'll even put something heavy on it and let that sit for a couple minutes. And then just a finishing touch is taking a white gel pen and adding some highlights just to kind of help my critters stand out a little bit more and give them that cutesy look. So that finishes off my card. All I need to do is add it to a card base, which I will do off screen. I hope you enjoyed this card project. I certainly did. I love that dramatic nighttime scene. And I know the moon gets hidden a little bit, but it still adds a lot to the card front. Thank you all so much for joining me, and I'll see you again soon.